The big green one?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Unbiased America Live, obviously an offshoot of Beer and Bastards. We have a regular panel here today. Michael Lee is back, the admin and creator of Being Liberal Logic, finally. It's almost good to have you back, Michael. If I liked you,
Almost.
I would probably say it is good to have you back.
I don't want to see your face either, Will.
We have Matt Palumbo in attendance. You could see in his glasses the reflection of his computer screen. Matt Palumbo, obviously noted author, good friend of Dan Bongino, and one of his guests on his radio show this week. You can check it out. Matt will probably, you posted it on Being Classically Liberal, right? Matty?
Sorry, technical difficulty. I'm having Jacob from We Are Capitalists convert it into, or put it on YouTube, so I'll be sharing it once it's up.
All right, very cool. Matt Palumbo, the only junior high kid that cannot use a computer yet. And all the way to the left there, we have Grant Phillips, the creator of the Modern Libertarian and admin at We Are Capitalists. What did you guys do at We Are Capitalists this week? You just went back to the regular page?
Yeah, we reverted back to a regular page because Facebook is they're like
oppressive.
You could stop it. Yeah, they're very oppressive. They shut down the whole group thing we had going.
Okay, so you went back to the page. I've noticed. All right, very good. And we also have our special guest, Julie Borowski. Julie Borowski has a bachelor's in science. Was it Frostburg State?
Yep.
You graduated magna cum laude. Very admirable. It's great. You worked formerly for FreedomWorks, correct?
Yep. For 5 years.
5 years. Wow. When did you stop working there?
April of this year.
And then you went out and did your own thing from there?
Yep. Trying to do it.
All right. Very cool. Yeah, you have a very successful YouTube page. What came first, your YouTube page or the Facebook page?
YouTube page in 2011.
Okay, and then the offshoot is your Facebook page?
Yeah.
And does that drive most of your traffic, or is it the other way around?
It's about even. I have YouTube subscribers and Facebook.
Okay. My first question, I'm going to start asking questions, and I'll let the guys ask some questions.
I'm here too, by the way, Will. Thanks for introducing me.
Oh, Kevin, yeah, okay. We also have Kevin Ryan. Kevin Ryan is the purveyor of the Unbiased America page, which also is the cousin, obviously, of this broadcast. Kevin does a relatively decent job at Unbiased America, though most of the legwork is done by me. Anything that's been successful there, pretty much I have done. And I copied it from somebody else, so I don't want to say who.
No, don't introduce me next time.
Okay, good. I don't want to. What happened? Your hair color changed. It's like
just go back to your first question.
Did you run out of Just for Men, the red kind?
It's salt and pepper. It's very in.
All right, I'm sorry. Let's go back to Julie here. Stop interrupting me, Kevin. No one cares about you. What was my first question again? Now oh yes, coming out of political science department in academia. Were you always a libertarian? What formed your views? Did you go into political science? Was it just something you decided on a whim? Or were you a libertarian prior? What got you into libertarianism?
Sure, it's kind of a long story, but I grew up very hardcore conservative, probably neocon back in high school. I started to have doubts about foreign policy during the George W. Bush administration, and I spent a lot of time online on Friday nights on online forums. And I found the word libertarian. I had never heard that word before. I was like 15 about, and I looked it up and it said people who want maximum freedom. And I was like, hey, that's actually what I want. So I looked more into it and I figured, hey, this sounds good, sounds something I'd be interested in, and looked more into it and became a libertarian. I didn't get active into kind of politics until around Paul when I was a freshman in college in 2007. At the time, I was an elementary education major, but I didn't really want to go into that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I love to debate politics and Ron Paul, and finally someone said, why aren't you a political science major? So I was like, hey, that's a good idea. I didn't really know there was a career for me because I never wanted to be a politician, but I became a political science major, and from there, I guess I did a lot of internships in FreedomWorks. I started a YouTube channel, so that's kind of the long story short about it.
Okay, that's interesting. So you were just basically online. It was George Bush's foreign policy. It was like a rebuke to his foreign policy. Made you move more towards libertarianism solely on the foreign policy issue. Is that what kind of made you more libertarian? Were you always more of a free market
Yeah.
person? I mean, obviously as a conservative, yes. So it was foreign policy that moved you more towards libertarianism.
Yeah, I was always very into free markets. I was always a
Okay.
fan of entrepreneurs. But foreign policy was a big step for me for libertarianism. Then I started getting more into social issues. I read libertarian literature about the drug war, so I got into that.
Okay. Who is your so out of all? I mean, you of all the libertarians online, you seem. I mean, I would put people into like a category of libertarians where I think most of us are on this panel, and then I would put other people into the more radical camp, meaning that everything must be along the lines of libertarianism, even things outside of politics or economics. It has to come from this libertarian strain of thinking. And I mean, I generally refer to them as radical libertarians. You don't seem so much on that radical side. Perhaps maybe it's your conservative roots. I don't know. But as opposed to other, I don't know what to call them, celebritarians, so to speak, you and Austin Peterson seem to be in like the same sort of camp as far as those libertarian views, like a more of a Milton Friedman as opposed to a Murray Rothbard, if that makes sense.
I think my ideals are pretty radical, but at the point I'm just kind of like, that's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. And I'm more focused on reaching out to non-libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started my YouTube channel, it was mostly Ron Paul libertarians who watched it. And as I continued, some more conservatives came on board as I started to have more like viral, like anti-Obama videos. So I
Right.
realized that I could reach these people. But if I'm out there saying, oh, anarchy now, I'm going to lose those people. I'm just going to be talking to people who agree with me for the most part. So it's like kind of like, what's the point? So I'm
Right.
trying to really, reach out to non-libertarians and kind of introduce basic libertarian thoughts to them. And I'm trying to do that at least.
Right. Are you getting accused of radical libertarians of trying to be too mainstream or
Oh,
trying to?
yeah. Yeah. All the time.
I'm really shocked actually by that.
Yeah, I know.
Can't believe it. I mean, I think all of us here kind of deal with that to a certain degree. It doesn't matter what you say; they'll attack you for whatever words you use. And relatively, do they ever come at? I mean, we'll get into your video in a second, which just kind of leads into your video. But I mean, rarely do they propose an argument or counter-arguments or refutations. They usually nitpick at certain words, and it usually becomes like this highly emotional, ideological nitpicking, so to speak. Do you find that happening more so than people actually being curious and wanting to learn about libertarianism?
I don't know. I've always had those people since the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was always like, okay, that those people are gonna be there. I'm always really excited when people criticize me from outside the libertarian circle, as strange as that sounds, because it means that I'm reaching out to other people and they're actually seeing my videos and seeing an alternative view. So that's like where I'm like, yes, I'm actually having some success, as opposed to, oh, libertarians are criticizing me, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're always going to deal with people who don't like you because you can never please everyone.
Right.
It is what it is.
And another question before we get to your video. When you say radical, I mean, I consider myself a conservative, a Jeffersonian, libertarian. I don't know, a minarchist, so to speak. I would consider abolishing the EPA, the Agriculture Department, many departments. I mean, that seems to be a relatively radical view, and coming from I as a conservative. So it's hard to get a baseline on what's radical. When you say radical, do you mean like you're an anarchist, but you're willing to sort of like compromise with minarchy?
I don't like the word anarchist because it turns away people.
Mm-hmm.
When people hear the word anarchy, they don't think, oh, voluntary associations, capitalism. They think people destroying private property and, basically crazy people with a Guy Fawkes mask. That's their image of it, so I don't like that word. Would I ideally like to live in a voluntary society? Yeah, probably. I would be fine with people trying it out and see how it works. I don't think we're going to get there in my lifetime, so it's like I guess it is kind of a compromise saying, hey, let's make things better in the meantime. Maybe that's a sellout thing to do, but,
Okay. I mean, because I know from being in academia, I'm considered extremely radical as a conservative. The things I say are generally laughed at, and people will rarely ever refute any argument I have, but then just generally criticize me personally. I get called an anarchist all the time. I'm probably the furthest thing from an anarchist. But the video you have, we all kind of deal with these certain libertarian issues. And you know, certainly the celebritarian point of view. I don't understand. I mean, the word celeb. We had our first show, right, guys? It was on celebritarianism. It was our first Beer and Bastard show. We had Josie Wales on to talk about it. I still don't really get what it is. Is it? I think you said it in your video. It's a person who's known throughout libertarian circles.
Mm-hmm.
And what are they known for? Their scholarship, or are they known for? What are they known for? Their personality or their scholarship?
It depends on the person. Some people are known for their work. They do blog posts, videos, stuff like that. Some people just post a lot of memes, and that's how they're well known. They like to debate online on Facebook threads, and that's how people know them. They don't actually do anything or actually produce any of their own original content. So it really depends. But yeah, it's basically people who are well known within libertarian circles.
Right. Because, I mean, if I were to look at you as a celebritarian, you have credentials in political science. You've also worked for FreedomWorks, which is a pretty decent think tank. So I mean, I think it's your background at this point. I don't know if it's just something that you're just like some sort of internet hawk. I think that you're involved in the movement, even though I don't like that word. But there's just some people that aren't. They just post memes and then become like quasi-famous on social media. Is that what that is? Just people know them from Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, just people who post tweets and do memes and stuff, and people know who they are, but they don't actually produce any original content. I think that bothers me. Okay,
yeah, probably bothers me and us a lot too. I think a lot of the guys on here, we do, certainly Kevin's page, We Are Capitalists, Being Liberal Logic gets into it, and Michael Lee and Matt Palumbo are admins at Being Classically Liberal as well, and they all do a lot of empirical work. It's a lot of research, it's a lot of writing, and I don't see them just with, you know, the mindless memes, you know. And I think it gets like, it's cool, you know, it's cool to see a really pithy meme, but after a while, when that's all you're doing when you in debates and you use a meme or a picture, and you rarely, it seems to be more emotional than there is any logic, it starts to get kind of annoying. And I think a lot of these people kind of make their bones on that. I want to get the guys in on this one. Grant, do you see that? I haven't, for some reason, We Are Capitalists isn't coming up on my news feed lately. I got to go to the page and keep liking all the posts. And I haven't seen all the kooks that you usually get over there.
Well, we have our new Marxist troll. He's back because we went back to our page. So we have our Marxist back, our resident Marxist.
Go ahead.
We don't really post. Like every now and then, someone will post like a meme, just kind of like in jest, and then like put up a little write up about it or something like that. But I've definitely seen the over memed like Lysander Spooner and Murray Rothbard quotes that are just like, I posted something on my page and then it's just like all these memes about like some quote some guy said, and I was like, the world is saved. You found a quote, you know. And,
right.
That's really annoying. I ignore it now. Will froze.
Well,
who's going to take over as host?
I'll go next because he was going to call me next anyways. I see the same thing, but I think you take a look at like the being liberal style of being an activist, where you just throw a bunch of memes out there that get ridiculous shares and likes and comments, and you end up influencing, I would say, way more people through that route than you do by spending the whole day researching something that ends up getting, you know, just a few hits. And so I'm trying to, on Unbiased America, I'm trying to sort of walk the edge where I do a lot of research on a hard issue, and it takes me a long time to write something, and then I will supplement that with, or complement that with a good-looking meme, sort of like an introduction to the article. And I know that Jason Hubbard was doing the same thing on We Are Capitalists and having a great success with that, and ended up basically, you know, becoming a revolutionary Facebook page doing that. So I'm trying to do the same thing, but it's hard because the ones that you really want people to read are the ones that you spend the most time on, and the ones that you put the most research and effort into, and the ones that actually get 1.5 million views are the ones that took you 15 minutes to do and were just capitalizing on, you know, people's emotions. But if there's a way to infuse the two together, and I love, Julie, I love how you are probably the best at introducing people to your ideology of anybody that I know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's the type of thing, but it's sort of, you got to thread the needle to be able to do that and not get too wonky, but at the same not become just something, like we were explaining with memes. So I kind of have been trying to find a similar balance, and it's been working pretty well.
Mhm.
But I think if you really want to make your ideology stand out, that's the route you got to take.
Okay, I'm just going to pick up. I kind of know where you left off, but I mean, yeah, Julie does a good job of that. Austin Peterson does a good job of that. And I notice Austin and Julie get the same kind of, I don't know, the same kind of trolls. You know what I mean? Those like radical libertarian trolls. And Kevin has done a really great job at the same exact thing, using empirical work in Unbiased America, and then throwing in some pithy, informative memes. So I think the three of you guys do it really well. I hate to pay Kevin a compliment. At some point, I will make fun of his age and/or his hair. But those pages do a really good job at that. Mike has a unique page at Being Liberal Logic, and it blew up. And I don't know, Julie, if you know about his page, but he generally takes memes from Liberal Logic and debunks them. And he kind of started the format of putting, their like liberal memes and then putting a rebuttal meme, something pithy, which is a hard thing to do. And he got really successful at it. And you'll have an interesting take on this. A lot of people just basically use those comments without any thinking as rebuttals and arguments. Did you find doing that restrictive at your page, that you could only fit so much of an argument onto one of those little memes as a rebuttal? Was it? I mean, are you really using a ton of brain power in the process, or logic? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, yeah, you have to use some brain power just because you have to find something at least somewhat clever and in a very short picture to get people to look at it. So yeah, it's restrictive in a way, and then you're restricted by only rebutting stupid liberal memes. So yeah, I mean it's restricting, and that's one of the reasons I like admitting at being classically liberal, because I can post about what I want without having to come up with a little clever snippy picture. But the same thing, and when you're talking about celebritarians and kind of the annoyance of the libertarian movement, I've noticed that every day I'll see Being Liberal or U.S. Uncut's crap, the stupid memes that they post that get 1,000 likes and 500 shares. Libertarians have started to come up with their own, and it's just as robotic as liberals. It's just as robotic as conservatives,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't say anything to these people. I mean, you could start a page right now, just like mine, for libertarian memes. You could
Right.
easily do that,
Right.
and you could rebuke hundreds of them. So they're getting just as bad as liberals as the liberal ones that I started out making fun of. They're terrible. I mean, it's just robotic, some of these arguments that libertarians have now.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm going to get around the panel on this one. Do you think celebritarians are good for the movement, Mike? Or, I mean, are they a net positive? I don't see how they can really be necessarily a negative. Can you convince me that there's a negative? As long as you're getting the message out there, I don't really care how you do it. But do you think it could be a negative?
I think that there is a negative insofar as libertarianism is a very, very big minority right now. It's not a very popular ideology. So if someone's first exposure is to a celebritarian that's kind of off the wall, let's go with Chris Cantwell.
Yeah.
Their immediate reaction to anybody in our circle is, well, these are all just a bunch of nutcases. Why should I pay any attention to them? And that's where the danger is, because when you're trying to introduce ideas to people, first impressions can be the last impression they'll ever get. Because once they see one idiot, that's it for them. They're like, well, I'm not even going to bother with the rest of them.
Okay, and how much exposure do you think somebody who's looking for libertarianism, like say Julie was before she went off to college, how many people do you think are Googling it and finding Chris Cantwell or Kokesh or some of these guys and think that speaks for the whole, I don't know, the whole movement in general? Do you think that happens often? That's the first name that they find, as opposed to say Milton Friedman or Hayek or any of those other guys?
Well, I think today the first name you're going to see pop up is Ron Paul.
Okay.
Which has some positives and negatives, and then you have the people that talk about Ron Paul, and then you get into some of the kooky people, and it just kind of gets 50-50 at that point. You could run into Kokesh and be totally turned off by libertarianism, or you could run into Being Classically Liberal or We Are Capitalists and be like,
Right.
wow, So at that point it's kind of a toss-up, you know. But
Mhm.
yeah, the first one's usually Ron Paul, and it might turn into Rand Paul from this point. We'll see.
Right. Maddie, some of the same questions. I mean, you have a lot of exposure with your writing and guest spots on radio shows and so on and so forth. Do you think? I mean, you're more so exposing your work than your name. Do you feel it's a problem if somebody's name, like a celebrity's name, comes first before the material, or it's only their name and no material? Does that make sense? Like go ahead.
The thing I've noticed with celebrityrians though, it's like they're famous for their name and material that isn't theirs most of the time. So I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think you guys were talking earlier about like I don't know like the whole meme issue. I think it kind of started this like with like Upworthy and BuzzFeed, and then the old news media seems to have degraded since they started that model of the clickbait and then whatever. That's hard to say. Like I know when I was writing for Rare, what would happen is I would write a very serious article, but they would give it a clickbait title, and I would get a lot of views in from that, and it would be serious content. So I think like that was the original trade-off. I know what what Kevin and Mike are doing is having a meme as like an intro, and then having intellectual content beyond that. So I think that's a good compromise. I really hate like just the meme type of thinking or just clickbait alone, and probably most libertarians as well.
The positive, though, and addressing you specifically, you have books out there. You have a lot of sourced empirical material that debunks a lot of this leftist garbage.
Yeah.
Okay. To get your name out there would be beneficial, I think, for libertarians and certainly people that are concerned with liberty because they get to read your material.
Right.
Like, go ahead.
Unfortunately, like for every 100,000 views I get, I sell like one book. So.
I don't know. Really. Did the Bongino show help you out this past week?
I usually sell like 10 to 20 after the show, which is always nice. So yeah.
Ah, pretty cool. Okay, Julie, celebritarians, in your opinion, do you think they're good overall or a bad overall? Net positive or net negative? I mean, we know they're annoying. That's been established. But are they a negative? Mike's got the book there. Here you go.
Well, my point in the video I made is that a lot of them kind of think they're a really big deal. And that bothers me because none of them are basically known outside libertarians. So they kind of have this like big ego they develop. That's kind of my problem. But it really depends on the person, I'd say. Like you mentioned, Chris Cantwell. I think he probably appeals to certain people that I can't reach.
Right.
And I think I could reach people that he can't reach.
Right.
So it's just kind of, some people are probably going to be turned off by him. Some people are probably going to be turned off by me. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It just depends on the person.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, and I have a question, and I had a theory. Do you think guys like Cantwell and Kokesh, you said they're people that you can't reach anyway, just found a niche in the libertarian market, and they try to exploit that niche? Do you think they really believe a lot of the crap that they're saying, or do they just want to get their name out there and they know how to exploit this viewpoint and those people via social media to become a celebritarian? I'm sure Cantwell makes money off of advertising or traffic to his website. I mean, in that case, it's a kind of a shrewd move, to be honest.
I don't know if they believe it or not. I do think they have a niche. I think it might be smart for them to go on with that niche. I think Cantwell probably attracts maybe like men's rights activists who tend to be libertarian also, more like offensive, people who like offensive humor.
Is it that brutal? Is that brutalism? Is that what that is?
Yeah, like brutalism people. Like, he could probably attract those people that they probably won't like my stuff. So I mean, he's doing his own thing. I'm kind of doing my own thing. I don't want to step on people's toes in the sense of what they're doing.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying. I think that's what they do. They find a niche and they exploit it. And I think it's kind of like a market mentality. I can make money off of these kind of kooky people. They want to have some sort of luminary. Why not do it? I don't blame them. You know what? Get your arguments out there, and it's our job, I guess, to counter some of those arguments. I don't mind doing so.
Well, you know what it is. Well, you know what it is. It's really like the liberty movement has kind of become like its own competitive market.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where you've seen like ideas like Julie is more like center libertarian and what she expresses to a lot of people, and so is Austin, and I mean I think we all are too. I would consider myself a moderate libertarian, and that is sort of emerged as a more popular strand of libertarianism, whereas like Cantwell and Kokesh, they get all like the hardcore like down with the state, let's not vote for anybody libertarians, and that's fine. And they can have their niche, but ultimately, I think what it does for us is it sort of like boosts like a bigger movement. You know what I mean? Like it's like almost in any competitive market for any good. It's just an idea.
Right.
And I think it's great that we can sort of like refute what they say.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And separate ourselves from it like empirically and intelligently instead of like posting memes and quotes and stupid things.
You know what's
the problem? Sorry, Will. The problem I have is that opponents exploit the extremes. It happens with any liberals, conservative,
right,
libertarians. But I mean, you looked at Stephen Colbert had a show on where he followed the guys in New Hampshire and made fun of them. They were the guys in New Hampshire, including Cantwell, were following a meter maid and harassing him the whole day.
You're kidding.
No, this was on Colbert, and it was, the crowd was laughing. That's, that if that's people's perception of what libertarianism is, then that's where I think the negative side of celebritarian movement comes in, because yes, I agree with Julie that you don't want to step on anyone's feet because they're bringing in a certain market, but at the same time they're also pushing away a certain market. And I disagree with Julie a little bit when she says that she's pushing people away. I mean, I think there's a way that you can attract the most people possible, and I think there needs to be more people in the libertarian movement that are actually focusing politically on making the case for as broad an audience as possible instead of a tiny, minute, audience that ends up offending the broadest possible audience.
Go ahead, Julie. You can respond to that if you want.
Like I said before, I think it's impossible to get everyone to like your content. I know one of the main criticisms that I hear all the time is, oh, Julie makes libertarians look goofy and silly, and like, oh, this is a serious philosophy. Those people are never going to like my stuff because I put out a lot of stupid stuff. I know I do. I have fun doing it. I hope it helps.
How do you mean stupid? I mean, I think you might be goofy doing it, or but I don't know if the content in itself is stupid. I think you're doing it in a fun and goofy way, but a lot of material seems to be serious.
There's always a point.
Right. Right.
But some things that I do in the video are stupid.
Right. I get it's an entertainment factor.
Yeah, it's an entertainment factor. I started doing that because I started watching a bunch of other YouTubers, like popular, like pop culture YouTubers, and that's what they were doing, kind of acting silly and goofy, and that's how I have an audience. Right. So I started to do that. So there's a lot of criticism on me for that. So if you're a really serious person who doesn't like to watch that kind of stuff, you're never going to like my stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, I kind of have my own niche too, and people have their own niches. It's fine.
Right. It took me about 5 seconds to understand why you were doing it that way. Maybe because we all do this in social media, but it wasn't like, oh, she's really sullying the libertarian philosophy. It was like, I get it. She's using important material and trying to get an audience. If you just sit there and you're serious the whole time, who the hell wants to listen to that?
No.
I read economics journals and all this like heavy stuff all day. Read all these heavy posts all day, and then Julie, like some of Julie's videos, they're refreshing, is what they are.
That's a good
They're very refreshing.
Great point. Going through studies all day, reading this stuff, highlighting, and you just want to hear somebody just elucidate it in just a pithy, short, concise manner. You know what I mean? So I think, and you know what? A lot of the people will put content out at We Are Capitalists and at Being Classically Liberal, and definitely Unbiased America. It takes a ton of research. You know what I mean? And we put a lot of work into it. Nobody sees it. And I think that's when we're the most disappointed. And then we'll put out something that has a good message, but it's kind of goofy or it has humor to it, and it just goes berserk.
Yeah, I've learned that too.
Well, that's the point of what I do.
Right.
A lot of my posts have attached to the actual picture. They'll have, a 5 to 10 paragraph explanation as to why the particular meme that I'm disputing is wrong, but I'll have source material from different studies, different think tanks, and the picture will get liked by a bunch of people, but at the same time I'll also reach more people that actually want to read the content just because so many people liked the funny picture. So it kind of works both ways. If you can find a way to reach the people, as long as you.
I think we're losing them
at the end. So
was that just
it's a give and take.
Okay, maybe sorry, Mike, we missed that last half, I think, just because of the show. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what the hell's going on with this. It's starting to act like Spreecast now. I missed the last part of what you said, Mike, but I think I wanted to have a follow-up question, but I missed what you said. So I'm going to move along here to Maddie. Gosh.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some like contemporary stuff in the news now, and we can relate it to the libertarian movement. Certainly the stuff with the Confederate flag that's been going on.
I think the Confederate flag caused the shooting, actually.
You think it was responsible? Like,
I think it was solely responsible for the shooting.
as like the mastermind behind
Yes.
it? Okay.
Mastermind, perpetrator, all the above.
No, you bring
It
up
walks and talks and pulls triggers.
Yes.
you bring up a good point though, because look, this horrible thing happens.
Yeah.
Terrible, guys. Obviously a racist loon job, an awful tragedy. And what does the left do? Push their policy agenda and
Like,
bring up a flag. Oh, will
I'm
you
not-
get rid of a flag? What?
I've never been a fan of the Confederate flag, but it's like, guys, it's been here for what, 200 years, and we're just noticing it now? Like, why?
Because
it's not like this kid's the first racist either. Like,
anything to further their agenda is really what it is at whatever cost. It doesn't. I mean, you see the president get up automatically gun control. You know what I mean? Here, I was shocked when I saw that.
I mean, like, reacting right away in the face of tragedy is what got us a Patriot Act. It's what got us a war on terror. I mean, it's not the wisest thing to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Grant.
I wasn't surprised when he brought up gun control, because after every single shooting he's brought up gun control. I think he's just going to be just as unsuccessful if he tries to do anything as he has been in the past. But it was particularly annoying that Dylan Roof has been completely overshadowed by this whole Confederate flag thing. Completely overshadowed. Once they're like, oh, we got him, it was like, oh, let's ban the Confederate flag. Like,
So have the victims. I mean,
don't get me wrong. The companies who are deciding not to sell it, they're well within their rights and they're fine. And I don't think it should be flying on a public building, because it's not even like a state or a country or anything like that. But I mean, there are people saying we should ban it from existence, and that, like, come on, let's be a reasonable.
Well, they have to ban something, Grant.
Yeah, something's got to get banned.
Yeah, the left is constantly pushing an agenda. I don't think they really generally care what the facts are. What do you think about this whole flag thing, Julie? Do you think it matters? Do you think it's an issue? Does it matter to you at all, really?
Gosh, I've been struggling on this, whether I should say anything or not. I agree with what you guys were saying about, like, why is this a big deal? I guess there's a picture of him holding a Confederate flag, so they're saying, oh, well, all Confederates are racist, and
Well, there's a picture of Jimmy Carter.
Guy.
There's a picture of Jimmy Carter on the flag. There's a picture of Clinton Gore on the Confederate flag as well. Why? I mean, why now? I don't. And also, moreover, they're using this. It's like Democrats are really just kind of like rewriting their own history here. Here's the party that opposed the civil rights legislation, the party that opposed abolition. The Republican Party was built on abolition. I don't understand. It seems to be that everything now, Republicans are racist. It's almost like they rewrite history and they use anything for an agenda. So that kind of bothers me. So how do they control the narrative so well? How do they always control the narrative? And why is it that libertarians and conservatives are always the ones left apologizing?
Because we're always on the defensive.
Yeah, why?
We're never on the offensive. As soon as these tragedies come out, they want to take advantage of it, so they're going to say, oh, we need more gun control. Oh, look at this flag. It needs to be banned. Republicans are racist. Conservatives are racist. We're never out there actually being the first to say something. We're always on the defensive.
To that point, Julie, conservatives and libertarians generally respect the individual. And I don't identify as white. I don't identify as black. I'm Will Riccadella. I'm not part of a group. I don't know. I see the left using that. Oh, we need the Latino vote, the black vote. They're always balkanizing people, and they use these opportunities to even divide even more. You know what I mean? And Republicans fall into the trap all the time, and they go out and they apologize, and we need to get the Latino vote. If I hear that again, how about the American vote? Why are they not American? Why are they Latino? What does that have to do with anything? I don't know how we can't control the message, and so I don't hear many people come out and say we're all individuals, and if they do, they're drowned out by the Republican Party as well as the mainstream media. How do we change that messaging through social media? What we do? Can we? Is there anything we can do about that?
I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine. I think we have the internet that we could try to change the narrative, but we don't own the mainstream media. It's the left who does, and they want to push that narrative, and they're really good at pushing that narrative because they have the emotion on their side. People just get all pissed off about what's happening, this whole thing, and yeah, I think that they own it. How can we do it better? Like, gosh, I don't know. I think probably just getting out there as soon as it happens and saying, we're individuals, blah, 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 but I don't know. It's difficult.
Right. And to that point, it's like I see a tragedy and a shooting. The first thing I'm thinking about, man, those families, it must be terrible. I don't think like, wow, let me go out there and push a policy agenda and get out ahead of the Democrats before, these 9 people are killed. It's really, like you said, about talking. I didn't even want to talk about that for a few days. Like, what is there to say? Some nut job killed a bunch of people. To me, that's basically where it stands at. What is there really to come out and say? The same thing with the flag. It's like I don't even really care that much about the flag. What is there to come out and say? Do I have to come out and make a historical point? Do I really even need to get involved?
Yeah.
How much do I care? Kevin, to that point, is it all about controlling the narrative in the media? You do a lot of posts on this.
Yeah.
You're talking about gun control here. People think that these mass shootings, all this gun crime has gone up, when in fact it's gone down considerably over the last 20 years or so. Am I correct?
It's all about controlling the narrative, because if you control the narrative, you can control reality. People, we are all stuck within our bodies. We're not every place at every time. Our window to the world is our television, our computer, and so forth. And if that window's dirty, and if the people that control those windows are not giving us reality, we're not going to see reality. If you tell people, this happened in the 90s, violent crime decreased something like 75%. Well, it was 75%. And only 12% of Americans thought that crime was decreasing during that time. And the reason was because the news at night was increasing their coverage of crime. So, in reality, it's going down. The news is increasing it, so people see that crime's increasing. What does this show us? Well, 2 things. Number one, the news is not in the business of portraying reality. They're in the business of, number one, bringing in eyeballs.
Let me stop you right there, and then you can go ahead. Don't you think there's a demand for a news network to give the facts and the facts only? Do you think?
It's been tried. I mean, CNN, for a certain period of time, I think CNN was very committed to just the bland news. PBS has tried it a few times, but they always drift away because their numbers go down. And it's a format that just hasn't worked. CNN headline news for a while was just straight news.
Right.
Now it's like you turn it on and it's all the latest crime drama and that they're talking about. And what you end up with is a public that's misinformed, malinformed, and doesn't understand what's happening in the world, and therefore decides issues, calls up their senators and says, I'm sick of gun violence, when in fact gun violence is down 50% since 1991.
Right.
And in fact, 40 people a year are killed in mass shootings. And yet, how much time do we spend? 88 people a year are killed by a lawnmower. I mean, how much time do we spend, shaping our policies based on what are tragic occurrences, don't get me wrong, but very rare occurrences nonetheless.
Okay, so now you were talking about controlling the narrative, and I would agree with that, okay? I agree with it to a certain extent. But, I mean, look, 50, 60 years ago, you had you got your news. It was very limited where you could get your news from. So I think the liberal grip on the media was worse a half a century ago, even 30 years ago, even 25 years ago, you had less 24-hour cable networks. And today, we're all a product of social media, people getting on the internet. You can generally find news anywhere you want. You can fact-check news stations. I know that it comes at a greater cost of time, and not many people are going to do that. But you can go and find whatever news you want. I don't think they have, like, the leftist media has this stranglehold on the news anymore. Mike, would you agree with that, or do you think that liberals still control, like, the mainstream the mainstream news to a point where people don't want to look anywhere else? Is Mike still with us? I think he's having trouble there too. Maddie, did you hear the question?
Yeah.
You go.
It's tough to say. I think the left certainly has a stranglehold on the mainstream media, like on TV and whatnot. However, I think most people, certainly people my age, are getting more and more information online, and I think certainly you can really get any opinion there. But I think one of the negatives, of course, of that is that people tend to only view news that confirms their bias. So there's negatives on both sides.
Okay.
But I mean, it is great that we can fact check anything, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it as like the only thing I can turn to is Walter Cronkite, that hack at night. You know what I mean? I can go and look anywhere. Grant, what do you think? Do you think it's more people getting their news generally get like a left bias, or do you?
I think that leftism or like the socialist and progressive left, that philosophy inherently appeals to emotions. Because it's all about things being fair and what people deserve.
So, like Julie said, generally just emotional argument.
Exactly. It's just very easy to appeal to somebody's emotions. Like, for me to come on and say minimum wage is bad for poor people sounds a lot worse than someone saying these people deserve a living wage. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to understand the average person is never taking the time to understand the first thing about economics.
Yeah.
When you see someone say, this person deserves a living wage, I guarantee you they're probably 10 times more likely to lean towards that just based on that statement. They've never heard anything else about politics ever before. If you heard that, they would go for that over you don't deserve it. Like, we should just have a zero minimum wage. I think that's the case. Would you agree with that, Julie?
Yeah, definitely, because people actually have to look more into stuff. But what I've noticed is people tend to respond to the negative more than the positive. If you look at what people share on social media, it tends to be the more negative, like outrageous stuff, like someone beat up somebody, or some parent shamed his kid, stuff like that. People love to share that stuff because they love. Social media is all about signaling something about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So your Facebook page is how you want other people to see you. So if you post outrageous stuff and you say, what is wrong with people in the world? I see that all the time. You want people to be like, oh, that person, you're a good person because you're not like that. But people don't share that many positive things, I've noticed, on social media because they want to be more outraged.
That's true. And you're familiar with YAL, right, Julie?
Yep.
And I was YAL chapter president at Long Beach State here, and they used kind of the same tactics to recruit, which I hated. I hated going out and just talking about the drug war and, raids, and it was like, look, we have a president that circumvents Congress. We have an administrative state that has become so tyrannical, I can't even dig a ditch outside anymore without a government regulator. You know what I mean? We have actually we have confiscatory tax rates. We're bankrupting future generations. And people, I don't necessarily like the drug war. That's a problem. Sure, I can come up with a cost-benefit analysis of the drug war today, but the problems are more systemic. They're much bigger than that. And no one ever really generally talks about that. I hear a lot about, like you said, these sensational stories, or some guy shamed his daughter on Facebook, and people will go crazy. But when the president does something outright despotic, not a word. You know what I mean? And I don't think anybody focuses on that enough. Is that because, just like economics issues, people don't know enough about how the polity in and of itself is supposed to operate?
Yeah, it's more complicated. You have to look into it to know.
Right.
Also, I think a lot of people are afraid of offending people on the internet, on social media. Like, I take, for example, like my high school, my college friends, they never post about politics at all. Mm-hmm. If it is something, it's something like very kind of like nothing really at all. It's not about, oh, Congress did something bad, because I think they don't want to offend people.
Right.
They're like, well, I want to be well liked within my social group, so if I say something like too political, they might not like me. I think that's kind of part of it.
I think you're absolutely right.
Julie, I would agree with that. Once I started getting into the social media politic sphere or whatever you want to call it, I had a lot of people who were my friends from high school and college, and just random people just messaged me and say, hey, I haven't talked to them in decades, and they're like, I'm so glad you're posting all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's great information. Yeah. Like, thank you. I really enjoy reading your stuff. And I'm like, how come I responded to one person, like, how come I don't ever see you post anything? I didn't know you had opinions. And they're like, well, like I don't know, like I don't
That's
want to have to
funny.
deal with like the firestorm. I don't want to kick the hornet's nest. I'm like, all right, I'll kick it and throw gas on it and toss some ash.
I hear that too.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I hear that a lot too, and I'm like, why don't you comment or like it? And they're like, oh,
They
I don't
don't-
want to.
Yeah, I was like, why don't you tell me you like it?
So here's my next question, Julie, and I'll ask the other guys. Do you think it takes a little bit of bravery to do this, to be a conservative or a libertarian, and to post these contrary views? Certainly on your friends list. Look, I come from New York. I come from a very liberal area in New York. I live in a very liberal area in California, and I mean, a lot of people will come up to me and say, God, you're crazy. The things you post, you know what I mean? Like, I'll get that a lot. Do you think it takes, and I love it when they say that. I go, yeah, I'm crazy how? Tell me how I'm crazy. They never have an argument, and they just get mad at me, and I love it. I'm just like, oh, you don't have to talk to me if you really don't want to. But do you think there's some sort of bravery? Did you lose friends doing this? Can you speak to that at all?
I think when I first started out, a lot of my friends thought I was really crazy. Like, I never really posted about politics, and all of a sudden I found out about Ron Paul, and it was like Ron Paul like all the time, like on Facebook. Like, looking back, it was excessive. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, Julie, get some social skills. Like, that's not okay. But yeah, I mean, I got defriended a lot. People thought I was weird. Like, I posted recently about why women are less likely to embrace libertarianism. And one of the point I made is because it does take some bravery to talk about these issues because they're not popular issues. People are going to think you're weird, or they're going to think, like you talk about the minimum wage, that you're a heartless person, that you're not a good person, that something's wrong with you. So when you are posting about this stuff, yeah, people are not going to like you. I get a lot of hate mail every day, people wanting me to die.
Oh my
the
God.
regular person doesn't really want to deal with that. They just kind of want to live their life. So yeah.
Do you get a lot of like liberal trolls to your page that just bust your balls, or what?
On both sides.
Yeah, okay, you do get, okay. Who do you find more, I don't know, annoying? Radical libertarian trolls, or the liberal trolls?
Annoying. It really depends.
Who's more
what
ideological, would you say? Do you think it's the same? Do you think it's like...
The radical libertarians, usually they have a really petty reason why they're mad at me. It's just like, if that's not even important. Like, we probably agree on these issues, but like I word things a little bit differently than you would. So, but like I said before, like, it's actually a good thing when there's liberal trolls on my page, because I'm reaching out to people beyond trolls, hopefully, and maybe their friends will see what they're posting. Those don't really bother me. I've gotten to the point where I have pretty thick skin and I like to mess around with people online. They hate when you agree with them. So yeah, I like to have fun with it. I mean, I like trolls.
Okay, now here's my next question. Have you ever reached somebody? Has anybody ever said to you, Julie, I loved your stuff. It made me think differently. I used to be a liberal, now I'm a libertarian, or I've really come around to the liberty movement. Have you ever gotten, I mean, we talked about the hate mail and the other stuff, but have you got things that made it like, wow, this is really worthwhile what I'm doing?
Yeah. My favorite messages are from kids who send me messages, like 10-year-old kids who like found my videos on YouTube and watched them with their parents. And they send me messages and say thank you because now I'm actually interested in politics. Before I thought it was boring. And then their parents will send me a message and thank me for not cussing in my videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, those messages are really worth it.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah, that's a good feeling. I would ask Kevin about the question about losing friends, but he never really had any to begin with. So that would be a tough question. No, but
There
Kevin,
are no friends in Kennebunkport. There's a small population. Small population in Kennebunkport.
you remain very isolated, you one percenters over there in Kennebunkport, you and the Bush family primarily. But you don't post much on your private. You don't really post much on your personal page. I mean, you leave it relatively to Unbiased America. Is that because you're not as brave as Julie?
Yeah, not necessarily not as brave, but I like there to be a separation between what I write that are for friends and family and what I write that's for the mass audience, because I don't want to offend. It's almost hypocritical to say this, but my audience, I like to be strangers, basically. I like to be people who don't understand or don't know me, and my friends, the ones that I've gotten to know closely, I don't really want to know views on politics. I've accepted them for who they are, and I wish this was the case for everyone. I really do. And I wish that everybody could get along with each other regardless of ideology. And I talk about this a lot on Unbiased America. But it doesn't really work when you're friends with somebody and you're also criticizing them politically. People take it very personally, and you do. You lose a lot of friends that way. Mm. And it's not that I'm not courageous. I value my friends more, than I want to instill my political system in them.
Right.
Because we have all of us have small groups of friends compared to the amount of people we reach. Mm-hmm. So let's keep a barrier between the friends and the people that we're talking to.
Mm-hmm. See, yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. I feel like I could do a lot of good by converting my friends. I don't know, so I like to post that stuff and at least get them to think. I don't think a lot of people actually even do a little bit surface thinking a lot of the issues. And if I can even just provide the impetus just to use a little critically thinking in some issues, then I'm fine with that. But rarely would I ever lose a friend over a political debate, unless they become vitriolic or they name call. I've had somebody do that just recently, just on the whole shooting thing, and he said something like, "Why do you like to exploit something or other, or the dead?" Or I said, "Hey, I get lost." You know what I mean? I said, "Good luck, whatever. You don't have an argument, so I'm the bad guy." A lot of people do that to me all the time, and I mean, it's like I don't make it personal for them, but the left tends to like to make it personal. I think perhaps because they run out of arguments. Maddie, you wrote some books. I mean, people must have read your stuff, and you're in Jersey, and there's a ton of libs over there. I mean, yes. Oh my God. How did that go for you?
I pretty much told none of my friends or family members about it besides my parents. So, honestly, like most of the kids I'm friends with at school, and even the kids I went to high school with, don't know that I write for all these sites. They don't know about the Facebook pages that I contribute to. I'm like Kevin. I'm worried that if I were to post on my personal page, the stuff I do on BCL, they might take it personally, or I don't know. It just doesn't seem worth it to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back to Grant with that one. The question I asked Matt, I'm trying to work out. I can't even sign off right now because I don't have the button. Google
You're really stuck with us.
Yeah, you're stuck with us for a little while longer. But Grant, do you ever at We Are Capitalists? I want to ask the same question. I admin there for a little while, and I know there was a lot of people that were grateful for the content we put out, and we did change some minds. Does that still happen there? Like, is it?
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
I get people who comment on and they say like, this hasn't convinced me to change my ideology, but it's at least made me like second guess what I believe, and I think it's always a first step, because when someone says that, I mean, that's just you smoked the pot, you started the gateway drug, and that's always really good to hear. And going back to like, I post a lot of my stuff on my personal page. I frankly don't really care what what other people I know see, and I think I've actually converted a lot of people close to me. I think because that gives you a little bit more credibility maybe in their eyes. Like, for example, like my girlfriend's not very interested in like politics and stuff like that, but I'm able to talk to her, and I've talked to a couple of her friends who were just interested but hadn't like taken the time to learn anything. They didn't really like care that much, so I was able to talk to them about it, and I think maybe offended them a little bit, but at least got them thinking about it. Which it goes back to I know Julie is like one of the very few women that are big in the Liberty movement. At least, I mean, there's certainly a lot, but not as many as there are guys. And that's so it's been kind of cool seeing that it is a message that you can sell to other genders and other races besides the typical white male libertarian.
All right, here's my next question, Julian. It's kind of like Grant kind of touched on it. And I've been a fan of your page for a long time. It hasn't been. I like that you don't focus on a lot of certain like anarchy. You're not very overly ideological or Rothbardian. Moreover, my favorite part is you don't focus on that you're a woman. And a lot of like libertarian women, it's always about relationships, or they're writing about women in the liberty movement, and I think they're just so about gender. Do you know what? I've never mentioned gender. I'm talking about capitalism, the founding. You know what I mean? Maybe because I'm a guy and no one really cares. But a lot of women in the movement just generally talk about their gender and issues related to relationships and a lot of that other nonsense. And I don't understand why that is. Is that marketing again? I don't see you using that strategy. I see you going more the route of fun, goofy, give off a good message, and get it out to as many people as possible. Can you get behind the logic behind that?
I guess it's kind of a niche they developed. Maybe they talk about things they care about. Maybe it's just the way to get more viewers. They're saying, well, I'm a libertarian woman, I'm a rare woman, so I'm going to talk about these issues, like women's issues. I don't know. I've never just really focused on my gender. Like, until I really put myself out there online, I didn't really understand like how people treat men and women differently and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, I grew up a tomboy. I have a brother. Like, I was always kind of treated like a dude growing up, I guess. I always had like guy friends. I've always gotten along better with guys. So I just never really focused on much on my gender. I'd rather just focus on other issues that I'm actually interested in.
And as libertarians, and certainly as libertarian women, you would think, like, I mean, as a conservative, I'm more concerned with what's between one's ears rather than what's below their waist.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, why are libertarians so quick to always identify with groups? I see that as leftism, really, to be honest. That groupthink. It's like, oh, I'm a woman, or I'm a anarchist, and what? I don't get that. Rather than conveying a message or debunking a lot of this crap that's out there, it's more so about what group they're in. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's a marketing strategy. But people that are knocking your marketing strategy, you're doing well, and you're staying on message, and it's not about that other crap. You know what I mean?
I think it's more powerful. I don't want to sound not humble here, but like some libertarian women, they use their sexuality. Like, oh, I'm an attractive woman.
Exactly.
Like, look at me, look at my chest, look at my butt,
Right.
all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, you'll get a lot of viewers that way, but people won't respect you. They're not like, oh, I want to know her opinion on the Federal Reserve. Like, no one cares.
Right.
They're just looking at you as a sex symbol. And
Right.
I've tried not to do that. I know I make videos and it's not my face, but I've tried not to use like my body at all because I think it's just so tacky and it just,
Right.
no one respects you. Once you get old, no one's going to care about your opinion.
Exactly,
so.
right. No, I see more sexualization than I see scholarship. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and let's say if you combine both, you're a good-looking gal, but you do rigorous research and you get your point out. I could see that, but rarely do I see.
I don't know what happened.
I don't see them putting out these interesting pieces, these source pieces where you're actually really learning something and they're good-looking at the same time. And then they just focus on gender issues, abortion, slut shaming, or whatever else they can come up with. You know what I mean? And Kevin uses his body a lot in his posts, and it's like I tell him all the time, people don't really care about your body.
He's got like a dad bod thing.
Yeah, he does, and that's in right now. Kevin's dad bod.
I created that trend actually.
You did?
Yeah.
But you don't have a beer belly. You have a Scotch belly.
Right.
Yeah, the Koch brothers to push that for him.
It's like a beer belly, but more expensive, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It costs a lot more. But
just to talk about what you just said, I think there are women that do bridge that gap between a female and somebody who's just trying to push. Not my favorite, but Amanda Billy Rock, if you guys remember her.
Yeah.
Was very good. She was very good at actually expressing herself in a well-marketed way, but she was also, she understood that she was female and she was bringing in a lot of male viewers. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but if you look at the most popular people, okay, they're not the most popular people are substance-driven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are people that actually, believe it or not, can not just relay some good content, but do it in an entertaining way. I mean, there's a balance that you have to achieve, and like I think Julie does an incredible job of that, and I think that's the most important thing. You have to market these. These are great ideas that libertarians have, but you have to market them well, and you can't just market yourself as an individual, as somebody saying, okay, I'm Will Riccardella, and you don't care about what I'm saying, just look at my my arms because
they're huge.
Right, because I'm just going to wear a tank top every
because they're ginormous. And, my shoulders are also huge.
totally inappropriate.
You're
for a
welcome,
show.
everyone. Yeah. Okay.
But seriously, I think there's a way that you can market what are very good ideas. So I don't think people should shy away from using good marketing to push good ideas. The two things work; they complement each other, and when they do, it's very successful. And that's how you become. And I've always said this: I think we need a populist push to make people understand and to make people like what are, in my opinion, very good ideals.
Okay. We have a viewer question, and I want to get this to Julie. And it's about the 2016 candidates, and this is what I want to get to next.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Donald Trump? Libertarian
Really?
or not libertarian?
I don't think he's libertarian. It's kind of embarrassing because I have a few family members who really like him, and they're texting me like Donald Trump for president. I'm like, oh my god, because he's just so. He's like really like anti-immigrant and like anti-free trade and America first, and I don't really know that much about his policies beyond that,
Yeah.
but I mean he's just kind of a joke.
Okay.
He's populist.
I like him because he's going to change he's going to have the Republican. I don't like him as to be the president, but he's dynamic and then he changes up the field. He can say whatever he wants, and maybe he'll say or hit these issues that really need to be addressed and force the other candidates to address them. You know what I mean? Like I like that he's just a wild card and he'll say anything. China does at some point need to be addressed. I like that he brings up China. I don't know if he really knows some economics that well when he's talking about their currency and trade. I think he's a little lost on that. But he is bringing it up, and it does need to be addressed. He's bringing up Putin, too, and I think that needs to be addressed. But only to that extent is he good. Do I want the guy to be my president? No. I mean, here's a guy who supported Barack Obama in 2008. I think he's confused at best. But that leads me to my next question. Who are in the 2016 field, who are your top three favorite contenders right now?
Top three? I don't even know if I have a top three.
It's a good question.
Out of all of them, who do I like the best? Clearly Rand Paul.
Well, yeah, I know that, but let's go
beyond
after
that. Let's see. Bobby Jindal announced today. I don't know that much about him. Ted Cruz is good on some issues.
I like them too.
Gosh.
Jindal's okay. What about Walker? What's your take on
Walker? I know that he's for the Patriot Act. He's very anti-civil liberties, which bothers me. He's probably good on some economic issues. Foreign policy, he's probably a hawk, isn't he?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gather his foreign
I really
policy.
don't have a top three.
Okay, so just Rand Paul at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the others are okay, but no one I would say is like really good.
Carly Fiorina?
I don't know enough about her.
Okay. Who are your least favorites then?
Least favorites, Huckabee, Jeb Bush, the typical. Let's see, who else? I don't know enough about Ben Carson. I don't know if he has experience. Who else? Give me some names.
Let's say, who's the fellow Ohio governor? No.
Rubio is kind of a neocon.
Kasich?
Kasich, I don't know, he's kind of boring. I don't know
terrible, too. Christie.
do you like him? I can imagine you like,
I don't like Christie at all. I think he's an idiot, a halfwit. Oh, I speak what's on my mind. Oh yeah, okay. You eat too much. How about that? And look, the guy thinks he's a hot shot. I speak what's on my mind. No, you don't. And half the time you don't know what you're talking about.
The big scandal with him in Philly is that he accepted Cowboys tickets from Jerry Jones, and he's apparently secretly like a huge Cowboys fan. So everyone in the Philly area just now hates Chris Christie.
Oh, really? I mean, yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not a Jets fan? How can you not be a Jets fan? All right. I think we went over the contenders with you guys, but I mean, it's an interesting field. I don't know. Do you see? Let me ask you about the Democrat field. Do you think you see somebody coming up from Hillary's left, a contender? And do you think that Hillary could win in a general election?
I think Hillary's going to be the nominee, and I think she's most likely to win.
Really?
Whoa.
What? Now let me ask you. Okay, you don't think she'll get a challenger in the primary? Anybody that can contend with her?
O'Malley has some credentials, but I don't think he's not
That guy
going to.
is. Chris Christie has a better chance than that guy.
Yeah.
He's
Bernie
trying to run to the
Sanders
left.
not going to win.
Sanders
O'Malley,
is getting a lot of support. I gotta
yeah,
say.
but he's not going to be the nominee. Hillary's definitely going to be the nominee, and I think she's going to win the general election because she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's what she's running on, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she's running on. That and Republicans are racists.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally her message right now. Kevin, you said before Donald Trump is a populist, okay? Bernie Sanders terrifies me, not because he has any sort of logical argument, on the exact opposite. The man doesn't have a single cogent, logical argument to say. He could just go out there and repeat mantras and slogans that get people riled up. And as Julie said and as Grant said, it's all about emotion, and that guy can stir up emotion. And he has venues now that are overflowing with people. People that don't like Hillary Clinton, they want to hear about these, because you're poor, because there's rich people, and all that crap. Does Bernie Sanders scare you as much as he scares me?
No, Elizabeth Warren scares me more than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is psychotic, in my opinion.
No kidding!
I think
Obama's psychotic.
No, but I think Bernie Sanders will not win in the general election because socialism overall, thank God, is not a popular ideology, and he self-identifies as a socialist. But I think Elizabeth Warren, who is socialist, well, sort of a corporatist socialist type of thing there, I think Elizabeth Warren is a bigger threat, and hopefully she doesn't run. If she was running right now, I think she'd be the nominee, and I actually think she'd win. Because populists, this is what, and I said this before, libertarians need a populist. They need somebody who can appeal on a level that's popular, on a level that people say that's right. But they also need to, have a message that's true. And if you can do those two things, you're going to get elected. That's why I said Donald Trump, as wacky and stupid and crazy as he talks, he says things that people believe. And reality doesn't matter as much as people believing you. And if Trump says something that people believe, people are going to vote for Trump. If Bernie Sanders says, a 90% corporate tax rate or a 90% top tax rate is going to help America, people are going to believe him. They're going to vote for him.
Right. That's what scares me. I agree. Maddie, does Bernie Sanders terrify you as much as he terrifies me?
Yes, because I have to differ from Kevin because I think Sanders actually believes what he says. I think Warren believes it to an extent, but maybe not as extreme. I actually read a book of hers called The Two-Income Trap, and honestly, if you didn't know any better, you would think that she's a social conservative with some liberal solutions to problems. So, I don't know. I just feel like Sanders is much more dangerous. He has much stronger convictions.
Okay, that's not a bad point. Grant, I wanted to get this to you on this one. I know you love Bernie Sanders. He's like I know you write him a ton of fan mail, and don't you put put the lipstick on and put like a little napkin in there?
There's also, I have a Bernie Sanders fat head on my wall here.
But can you do me a favor? I thought about this
before I go to work every morning. But my slave CEO, my slave driver CEO.
I thought about this question today. I was on my run, and I thought about asking you this because you deal with Bernie Sanders. Can you define what a democratic socialist is for me? I mean, I'm in economics.
I have no idea what that means.
I'm having a hard time. Somebody called me, a buddy of mine called me yesterday and said, well, what is a democratic socialist? And I said, I think it's just somebody who supports fascism at the whim of a majority.
Yeah, I think it's someone who just believes what they feel is right, But no, I think that what Bernie Sanders is essentially trying to push is, and he said it before and I wrote about it, is a Scandinavian-type socialism, which honestly, it works pretty well for them. It does. They're not a very productive country. So
how does it work well?
But hold on. It works for them, fine. But they're very small. They're very homogenous. It's just a bunch of white people who just want to live off each other, and that's fine.
Oh, they're a bunch of white people, so they're racist.
That's what it is. Yeah, they're probably pretty racist.
They're very free trade. They're very free trade. Bernie Sanders is not free trade.
Yeah, they are. That's true. That's very true.
Okay, by the way,
but to think that can translate to a nation of 300 million people to be run from one city in Washington D.C. that is where the stupidity comes in.
Well,
That's where
and-
democratic socialism stops working because
I
it's,
think
it's
it should
impossible.
be worth noting that these democratic socialist countries, if you actually look at like the Heritage Foundation or Fraser's rankings, they have more economic freedom than America. There's no way in hell we would have more economic freedom than if Bernie Sanders was president. So
to that point, any economist will tell you if it's for free trade and they're happy, generally it's probably because they have efficient use of resources, probably through a price structure or free trade. And
Well,
it's
like
not
Scandinavia banks off oil.
right. Okay, so is it all government-owned oil?
Yeah, in Scandinavia, I mean, I think it varies, but it's mostly private. They tax it like
in Norway
90% or whatever.
Right.
Is Norway? They're all different.
Yeah, Norway is like a government fund. I think it's a lot of.
Like I always say, I think the United States should really strive to be more like Scandinavia and Norway. Those are real economic powerhouses.
Real powerhouses, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we should be like. Julie, do you know what democratic socialism is? Your background in political science. What is democratic socialism? Is it like, your property rights are at the whim of a majority? So like a majority can just will away your property? Is that kind of like, am I close?
I have no idea, actually, but I think socialism kind of has a bad rep, and thankfully so. It's kind of a tainted word, so they put the word democratic because that's like a good thing.
I see. That's a really good point. To soften the blow. But democracy should have a bad name too. I don't know any democracies that have really been very liberty-oriented. The common misconception that the United States is a democracy, or that the founders and framers ever even intended of making one, which they did not.
I want like a Pinochet, like Chilean dictatorship, like a free market dictator. That's what I want.
Yeah, you want a free market dictator? I mean, he was very corporatist, good old Pinochet. But that's exactly what it is. That's,
you know what I mean? Let's just have someone take over and executive order our way into free markets,
Right. Yeah, that is true. Kevin, you talk about it a lot. Socialism, that Julie just said, socialism gets a bad rap, but socialism as it was always defined until it did get a bad rap, which was the government controls the means of production, right? How many people even know the real definition of socialism in and of itself?
No, nobody. And the younger you are, the less apt you are to understand what socialism is. They did a actual survey, and they asked millennials. They said, "What's your opinion of socialism?" And it got high marks. It was something like, they favored capitalism by maybe 5 points or 10 points. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, over socialism. And then they asked them, well, what is socialism? And they all got it wrong. Nobody knew what socialism was. And so, again, like, it goes back to this whole window on the world perception. People are not seeing, the public's not being informed of reality, of the truth. And because of that, people have very warped perceptions right now. They don't know what socialism is.
Right.
So when they're supporting something, they have no idea what it is.
Right. Moreover, they don't know the difference between, most people, a democracy and a constitutional or federal republic.
Right.
We're not even that anymore. God only knows. I don't even know what we are. We're just generally lawless.
We're a democratic socialist.
But essentially, we are. I mean, we're more than 50% socialist at this point. You have 80% of the people voting to take money from the top 20%, which sometimes it's generally themselves, because obviously income classes aren't static. But you can get into this stuff all day. But it was a good show. Julie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
Follow your page is Julie Borowski on Facebook, correct?
Yep.
And you have julieborowski.com, and you're on Liberty.me. You have your own little outlet there as well, correct?
Yes.
And did you start writing for the Libertarian Republic as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're on the Libertarian Republic too. Thanks, Grant. Follow Grant at the Modern Libertarian. He puts a bunch of great stuff out on there. Kevin's Unbiased America, doing very well. Have a piece coming out on government segregation, how government segregates communities. It's a ton of research, and that'll be out this week. Maddie, being classically liberal, buys books. And anything else? Oh yeah, when's our site coming up, Kevin? The Unbiased America site. What's going on with that?
I got it up and running, and now it's all about the tech people.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Got to get his typewriter working, and it'll be up.
So yeah,
I'm running it on the typewriter as fast as I can.
So when you get your typewriter going and your abacus all set up, that'll be up perhaps sometime this week. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Ryan, you can cut us off if you're paying attention.